Hey everyone, my name is Rick Gualtieri, and this, of course, is Tales of a Midlist Author. Uh, First of all, I'd like to extend my wishes that I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate. Hopefully, you all survived Black Friday. And if you're working on Nano, well, you're in the home stretch. I believe as of the time of this writing, there's less than a week to go in November. You should hopefully be at that 40K mark or past it, wrapping things up. If not, not that big of a deal. You can do, taking the time to finish your novel the right way. There's no shame in that. Or likewise, putting it aside for next year. So either way, if you beat it, that's great. If you didn't beat it, hey, there's always next time, or there's always a chance just to move beyond that and just work on it in your own time. So it's all good. Today, I think this will be a relatively short one. It's a holiday weekend here. Plenty of stuff going on. I know I've been busy and all this, but a couple of questions I've gotten on both Facebook and in email have caught my eye, and it's about this series. First of all, if you've been watching this YouTube series and it has helped you in any way, it has been my pleasure. I've really that is really the best thing of all. As I've told some other people, there's 50 some odd videos here, and if even one of them helped one person, it's made it this worth it. That said, the questions have involved, they're like, hey Rick, I follow various other authors on YouTube on their video series, and I wanted to know if like them, you're going to come out with a book on something, wrapping up all these marketing thoughts into one kind of just book aimed at other authors. And the reality is, I try to never say never, because that's usually just a good way to get in hot water. But I just wanted to say, not really. I'm not planning on it. I'm not planning on monetizing this YouTube channel, at least for the foreseeable future, because it was never my intent to. My intent with this was to kind of give back a little to the author community, because so many people have been generous to me along the way. So it's my way of if I can help you, that's great. That's my way of kind of paying it forward. So that brought the idea of the concept of monetizing. And I see this a lot in the author world. And I know there's that famous video by Harlan Ellison out there, Pay the Writer. And there's a lot of good logic to be had there, because, writers, actors, I will say the talent in a lot of media tends to has historically been abused. People are like, well, hey, I know there was a thing a while back where MTV, I think, was having some big event, and they were trying to get people to play for free, and people were like, you're charging people to get into this. Why do you want us to play for free? And the answer is almost always exposure. Exposure is a serious bullshit thing. It's a way to basically get something for nothing and then keep all the profit yourself. And I think you see this in a lot of instances, just looking at some of the crappy contracts that have come out of traditional publishing. But look at places like, say, the Huffington Post, which only recently started paying their writers. There's always been this concept that, well, hey, if you're not going to do it, there's 25 other people who will, and they'll do it for free, and they're happy for the exposure, whether or not it will help or not. So first of all, let me just say, you should never be in a position where you feel the need to work for free or for lower rates, or to join a contest at subpar, with a subpar contest, just for the concept of exposure. Because does exposure occasionally pay off? Once in a blue moon it does, but I think more often than not, the concept of exposure is complete crap. Because it's out there, it has its moment in the sun, and then the next thing comes along and it's forgotten. I think it's kind of like one of those cases where exposure is no different than winning the lottery, in that, maybe lightning will strike, but chances are it won't. So I want to put it out there that you should never feel the need to do something where you're putting your hard work out there for free or for below market rates, simply because of some promise that may not pay off. It's kind of like stock options. I know back in corporate America, I reached a point where I would not accept stock options in lieu of actual payment, because, one was money and one was, the promise of, hey, maybe one day it'll be money, or maybe one day it'll be nothing. And I'm not a big fan of that. So I just want to make it clear that I'm not kind of saying anything with that regards. What I am saying though is that I do occasionally see a disturbing trend, and I know I've been in a few groups that I've I've kind of backed away from on Facebook because everything in them was about monetization. Um, there's nothing wrong with having multiple revenue streams, but I think once you reach the point where if I can't measure the dollar impact of this, then I'm not doing it, or screw those people, I think that can be detrimental to businesses. And I mean, just think of any business that you've dealt with in the past, your bank or anything that that used to provide a free service where at some point somebody said, but if we charge people $1 to do this, we'll make more money. And it just winds up being a pain in the ass, like using an ATM sometimes. You know, things like that just tend to just sour people. Microtransactions are another thing that drive me nuts. It's kind of a case of can you versus should you. So as I said, for example, this YouTube channel, I could be using this as maybe like a kickoff point to be like, well, hey, here's my my list of my line of self-help books. And here's the thing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. If you can do it and make it work, that's great. What I'm saying is there reaches a point where you put too much behind a paywall and it becomes obvious you're only in it for for the cash. And I think that can sour people. And again, you're a business, so you do have to be mindful of cash flow. And again, multiple different streams are not a bad idea. I've always been an advocate that your book should be available not only in ebook, but in paperback and audio as well. If you can do shirts, mugs, have a small line of that to bring in income, that's awesome. If you can reach a point where where conventions are paying you to show up, even better. Things like that, it's never a bad idea. But I do think that there is something to be said for occasionally intangible benefits. For example, I've seen more than once people say, well, I don't do Twitter because I don't get anything out of it. Well, if all you're doing is just putting book ads on there, you're probably not going to get a lot out of Twitter. But there's the intangible benefit of being a real person, or at least I find, and occasionally finding new readers that way just by talking to them, having fun, posting my stupid thoughts to it. And you really can't measure that in dollars. If you were to if you were to try to measure that in dollars, you would tell me my entire social media presence is a waste of time. I would back up and say no, hardly. There's plenty of things I do there that first of all, it's stress relief for me, which I can't even put a dollar amount on. It's fun reaching new people, talking to new people, maybe winning those people over, maybe not. Oh, well, but the opportunity there is, and you really can, that's not something that I can look and and measure. And honestly, if I tried to measure it, I don't know, it'd feel kind of skeevy to me because it's kind of at that point I'm like, all right, well, I talked to these people for 5 minutes. What benefit did I get? Did my sales go up in those 5 minutes? I think that takes the human aspect out of it. And for me at least, being a small business owner, I know I don't want to ever want to reach that point where I'm kind of dehumanizing what I'm doing. I try to look at some of those big companies that have been good places, like Costco. A lot of people rave that it's it's a good place to work, despite the stockholders basically screaming at them, oh no, lower wages, do this, and they're like, no, we want to treat our people fair. In the past, Hewlett-Packard was considered an awesome place to work because of that mindset, and as a business owner, that appeals to me. The concept of making profits, making a living, I think that's awesome, but also having that human thing where I'm not so out of touch where I'm counting every nickel for every moment I spend somewhere. So, and this might sound like I'm getting preachy, and probably it is. This is more of a personal philosophy. If we want to actually get more towards strategic in matter, I would say I see a lot of people going into everything of oh, maybe I can make a buck out of that with no plan. So if you want to be strategic about it, just say, sometimes unless you have a plan, trying to monetize something can just work the opposite, or can just just be a complete failure or so. So if you want to truly be draconian about it, you could say that of along the lines of, well, if I really do want to monetize Twitter, maybe I should step back and actually have a good plan for it rather than just going on there and just guffawing it. in my case, like I said, I'm a big fan of two things. I'm a big fan of passive marketing, which is pretty much, for example, if you're looking at this YouTube channel, you might see a graphic of my books above the screen. That's great. Maybe you see it enough times, maybe you'll think about looking at them, or maybe you won't. Either way, I like passive marketing because it kind of just puts it out there without having to get in somebody's face and be like, buy, buy, buy. But as I said, there's also those intangible benefits. And for me, the intangible benefit here is, I like the fact that I'm giving something back and, I'm helping a few people. So, yeah, this is a bit of a preachy Tales from the Midlist author, but I just want to put it out there that you need to find that fine line between I'm not being screwed versus I'm not trying to milk people, getting blood from a stone and milk them for everything they had. There's a place in the middle that I think just feels, that I personally think feels right, where, you have a healthy business, you're putting out a product that people want to buy, you're putting the effort into that product, making it worth it, but at the same time, you're still a person, you're still I guess able to relate, you're still relating to people, so just the thought there that, the truth of the matter lies somewhere between what Harlan was saying and and the opposite extreme where where you're looking at every minute of your day and planning it out of, well, okay, if I'm not making money with this, it's a waste of time. Again, intangible benefits. Now, mind you, if you're wasting your time all day, those intangible benefits go away. So you do have to be smart about it. You still do have to be a little strategic, but there's nothing wrong with those things. Things that don't necessarily have a dollar amount in it. So really what I'm saying is there's nothing wrong with running your business. There's nothing wrong with monetizing things. But that's not to say you have to do it for everything. You can occasionally do a favor. You can occasionally write a short story, for somebody's anthology, or so without without that. But do it of your own free will. Don't feel like you're being taken advantage of, all of that. And that's just kind of my thoughts on the subject. If you are going to monetize something, go into it with a plan. Don't just throw stuff at the wall and see if it sticks. And above all else, still have a little bit of fun, because there is that stress thing of let's be honest, being a writer is one of the best things in the world. It is easily the best job I have ever had. And if I take that joy out of it, well, then I think I take a little bit of what makes it that best job out of there. But at the same time, I still like to eat. All right. I've preached enough on this subject. My name is Rick Gualtieri. This is Tales of a Midlist Author. Wishing you well with the holidays and with Nano, and I will talk to you again really soon.